Hi, my name is Matt Kayada, and today I'm going to give you my research speech over mechanical engineering. Quick disclaimer, it's kind of mechanical engineering. It's more like engineering in general because throughout this semester I kind of researched a lot of different avenues that I could pursue within engineering. Mechanical engineering just happens to be the most general, and it's the one I'm thinking about studying the most. So my quote: scientific research is human endeavor. The choices of topics that we research are based on our biases, our beliefs, and what we bring, our cultures and our families. The kinds of problems that people put their talents to solving depends on their values. That last sentence is probably the most important one, just for the quote and to me, for engineering as a whole, because my end goal for pursuing engineering is to help people. I don't want to be a doctor because I hate biology and I don't like medicine. So I want to find a way to help people, but I don't want to be a doctor. So what is mechanical engineering? It's a very broad field. It includes just about any other engineering degree that you can get because it is so broad. But mainly it has to do with the design and manufacture of anything from microscopically tiny parts to large systems. And even more generally, what they aim to do is transform an idea and bring it to the marketplace as a real product. So why did I pursue mechanical engineering, or just engineering in general? If anyone knows me, I've always had a strong inclination towards mathematics and physics. But I don't want to be a mathematician or physicist. I want to apply those two subjects in my work. And problem solving, it's very general, I know, but just more specifically, problems that don't have obvious solutions. Those kind of problems are the ones that I like to solve the most because no one knows this is the textbook answer for this problem. And those are the kind of problems I like to solve. And then creating and designing original things. This kind of comes out of my work with music. So anyone who's been in music, you know that you can take something on a page, but you can kind of impose your own interpretation. I know Ben likes to do that a lot, almost to the point of not playing correctly. Sorry. And so that's kind of, I'm applying that to engineering and making products or solutions that are original. So research, and this wasn't just like one article, this was a lot of different articles where I kind of researched the different topics of engineering. So I started this semester looking at materials engineering, and basically what that is, it's the study of polymers, ceramics, and metals. It sounds kind of like boring because you're like, oh, he works with plastic all day, but there's a lot of different cool things. One of them was there are these microscopically tiny glass beads that they actually use to help treat liver cancer, and so they actually irradiate the glass beads and they shoot them up through capillaries, and then that actually allows them to focus the therapy so that it is a focused treatment. I don't know too much about like cancer. So like from what I understand, focused treatment is kind of hard to do, and so that's one of the applications of materials engineering. Chemical engineering, the most common application of chemical engineering is upscaling commercial manufacturing processes. So like Alex over there, every morning he gets up and he uses his hair care L'Oreal special, keeping his curls nice and healthy. Someone had to help design a chemical process so that an entire vat of his special L'Oreal could be used. And so that's consistent. There's not just some person out in China like hand mixing that one bottle and they send it out. So that's where the upscaling comes from. Mechanical engineering is, like I said earlier, it's very general. It can include anything from aerospace or designing automotive parts to going as far as petroleum and chemical engineering and even materials engineering. Electrical engineering has to do with the design and manufacture of circuits and electrical equipment. that interest came out of my interest for designing music production equipment. And so I'll talk about that later from my original work. This was one of the topics that I had to research when I was originally looking at chemical engineering. So toxicity testing. Basically, what I want to do for my final product is I want to make something real and like that other people can use. And so if I did anything involving chemicals, I would be legally required to actually test it for any kind of toxicity levels. And basically I found out that this process it's extremely long and expensive, and it's just not feasible for a high school student. So if I helped design a certain material, or if I was even intellectually able to do that, then I would have to make sure it doesn't give people cancer. So that would be very hard. So that's kind of what deterred me from pursuing chemical engineering. Water purification. So this came up when I attended a Rotary Club meeting. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. I don't really know what it is. But it's just kind of a group of generally older gentlemen who are part of a group that like to give back to the community. And there they actually gave a presentation about joining with a sister club in a third world country to help solve a water purification problem. And so actually, if we can play this video. This is one of the methods for water purification that I was looking at, and I would like to incorporate in my final product.
So this is a simple method of treating water where we use the UV light to treat the water, but it's so simple that you may not even think that was going to work. Normally, the UV light would go in the water, any kind of a big basin of water, it would go like 10 centimeters. But if you were to treat water, you need to have a container, 10 centimeters of diameter, like 2-liter bottle. What we do, we fill it with water and then put it in the sun for 6 hours from 9 to 3, where we have the full sun. And then at the end of the day, you will realize that all the E. coli and coliform are not activated or are gone. I started working in several communities and also for myself when I go visit communities. And most of the time when we go to places that are too far, we don't have water, that's exactly what we use, and we never have any kind of waterborne disease afterwards. That means it really works.
So basically the gist of that is they're able to take dangerous or impotable water and leave it out in the sunlight for it to be exposed to UV rays for about 6 hours, and that's enough to actually treat the water and make it drinkable. So interviews. Okay. So Randall Oberl, he was Jeff Ding's mentor last year, and he works with mechanical engineering, specifically radio frequency and circuit engineering. So that was my first interview. I didn't really get a sense of what mechanical engineers actually do because he works more with the management side, and that's not really what I was interested in. I hadn't thought about that before, so interviewing him was good for me to realize that I want to work with somebody that actually does design work. Sean Coffey, he's a chemical engineer with a startup company called MEMS. He was a very interesting interviewer because he was focused more on underrated things, anything from college to even job occupations. He's the one that told me not to go to a private university because it's just a bunch of rich people playing around. I thought that was a bit of a exaggeration, but obviously taking things with a grain of salt, you can still consider his opinion, and knowing that when I'm applying to colleges, I don't need to go or try to get into a #1 school to be satisfied with a degree from there. Chris Wu and some of the engineers that were with him from Bell Helicopter. This was an important interview for me because it kind of was the catalyst for me to look into mechanical engineering. Prior to that interview, I wanted to avoid mechanical engineering almost because it seemed like the popular degree, and I'm all not mainstream and stuff. So I just thought mechanical engineering wasn't for me. But then I realized kind of talking with them that mechanical engineering was exactly the engineering degree that I would like to pursue. Dustin Miles, he is actually a mechanical engineer and he works with materials. And it was kind of funny because I asked him how he's able to work in that, and he says he just kind of asks like chemical engineers for help. So I don't know how he does his job, but it just shows that mechanical engineers can get a job in almost any field. And then Krish Prabhu, he's the regional CTO for AT&T. So if no one understands the implications of that, he's a very high status man. That was an intimidating interview, but he was nice. He talked to me mostly about college stuff, not so much ISM related work. But he was actually an electrical engineer at one point. So I had three main conclusions for my interviews. The first was obviously that I mentioned that mechanical engineering was the best topic for me, not only because it has the most to do with design work, but because it also has a great breadth that covers a lot of different topics that maybe I can check out while I'm working in mechanical engineering or studying mechanical engineering. The second was I want to work in a startup environment. I don't know how many people know the difference between like startup companies and like massive corporations. But basically, if you've seen, this is going to sound weird because it's Google, but if anyone's seen The Internship, that kind of like cool work environment where like they have a slide and everything and it's just like really fun to be around. That's kind of the startup environment that I would like to work in. And that goes hand in hand with less bureaucracy. One of the things I asked the Bell helicopter engineers what they didn't like about working at Bell was that they hated the bureaucracy. Basically, and I'm going to try and paraphrase, but the guy said before you get anything approved, everyone and their mother and their mother's dog and their mother's dog's like kid has to check before you can actually approve something. So basically, he's saying getting things done takes a really long time, and that just doesn't sound very fun to me. And also, when I went, there were a bunch of cubicles there, and cubicles are boring. The third was, it's kind of similar. Don't be concerned with big company names. I mainly got that from Sean Coffey, I mentioned earlier. So I did an interview for Lockheed Martin and then AT&T, and like, I was concerned with interviewing professionals that were working with these big companies because I thought, well, because they're a big company, they have to have some kind of edge over startup companies. But I realized that startup companies are actually a lot more innovative because they are startups and because they're having to compete with big corporations in their work. So I haven't necessarily decided what engineering topic I'm going to pursue. I'm gonna, once I solidify my mentor, I'll probably, I have to figure it out at that point. But basically who I'm pursuing for a mentor is the entire second floor of my dad's workplace. There's a bunch of engineers up there and there's a chief engineer that kind of manages them, and so basically if I was able to work with them, I could ask any one of them who has specializations in different engineering topics and then work with them to make products. So I have three different kinds of original works and final products that I would like to pursue. The first was the water purification one that I mentioned when we were watching the video. But this isn't necessarily coming up with a product to purify water. It's more of a process. And so basically in the presentation from the Rotary Club meeting, they said the problem with water purification solutions is that when you design something for them to use, they feel less inclined to use it because they don't take ownership of the product. They didn't help design the thing that's helping them. So I wouldn't just be designing a product, but a process for them to implement, and so that they can solve their own water purification problems. The second one has to do with physical therapy. So Lauren, my associate, who is doing work with physical therapy, actually talked to her mentor, and her mentor said she could think about designing a piece of equipment that could help with physical therapy. And basically what I would do on that end of the product is help design and make it real so that she actually has something that she can implement in her own final product. So I figured that would be cool. And then the third I mentioned earlier was working with music production equipment, and that would be mainly electrical engineering. And I haven't told Ben this, but I would like to work with you to actually create equipment for you to use on your final product. So if you would like to pursue that, let me know. I'm all about collaboration stuff. So yeah, I think that is it for me.
All right.
How long was that?
It was 15